Hello, everyone. Uh, let's-
Alright.
Please download Laboratory 7 notebook file from Blackboard. And before today's class, I think you can check your grades of first 4 labs. I have already graded the lab 1 to lab 4 during the weekends. So if you have any questions about your grade, please send me an email. I could double check it for you. And if I have something wrong, I will like regrade your work again. Okay, so and I think in this weekend I will grade the lab 5 and lab 6 and the assignment 1. And next week you can check your grade. All right. So if you have any other any questions, you can send me an email anytime. All right. So let's get started about the Laboratory 7. So please run the first script to identify host name, username, and current information, and input your full name and number and title. The title of the notebook could be this selection structures, okay? And the date you finish your work. Okay, so in lab 6, we learned how to write the sequence algorithm, right? So how to write some instructions one by one. And into this class, we will use the selection, or we can call it the conditional blocks. All right. So it's very, very important. And actually, we have already used it several times. Let's see it. So first one, let's do the some definition or the concepts of the conditional execution. So conditional statements are logical expressions that evaluate as true or false, and using these results to perform further operations based on these conditions, right? So you will see like if or else if, then a condition, right? And so the conditional collection, most of them, they are based on comparisons, right? So if we wish to compare whether two variables are the same or not, we need to use this double equal sign, right? When you use only single equal sign, it means assignment is not a comparison. So that's why you need to use a double equal sign, right? So for example, x double equal sign y means the exam will ask whether x and y have the same value. Actually, you can try it. Let me show you one example. First, you can define one variable and then check if one equals 2, right? And then you can print out. Actually, you can print out tab or print out the type of the x. Actually, it's very interesting. So you see here, we assign this value to x, right? And then it is a false. And if we print out the type of this x, it will be a bool, or bool means it's a Boolean data type. It's a Boolean data type, okay? So only two, and Boolean data type only have 2 values, true or false, okay? True or false. For instance, check 1, 1, and then it is a true, right? And it's a Boolean, and it's a true value, not a false value, right? Let's continue. So other comparison signs are not equal, right? And smaller than, greater than, smaller than, or equal, greater than, or equal, right? There are 3 logical operators. They are very important to build the multiple compares: and, or, and not. And operators returns true if and only if all conditions are true. So I'm not sure it's your first time to learn the and, or, and not logical operators, but in many other courses, they are still using the same concept of the logical operators. They are all using the and, or, and not. Okay, so for instance, 5 is equal to 5 or 5 smaller than 6, it will return a true because both conditions are true. And the or operator returns true if at least one condition is true. It means, in other words, if all the conditions are false, it will be false. at least one true, it is a true, okay? So if all conditions are false, then it will return a false. For instance, this one will be return a true because the first one would be a true, but the last two are all false, but it will still return a true, okay? And not operator is very important, returns a true if the conditions is false, okay? So if the not keyword is true, then it will return a false. So just do a logical reversal, okay? So it's very important, please make sure you understand and, or, and not operators, okay? All right, so any questions so far? All right, let's see some concrete examples. First one, you see here, we define two variables, x is 7, y is 10, and then first one, we print out the value, right? X is 7, y is 10, and next one, x is equal to y, yes or no. Then we check it, it is a false, right? It's not, x is not equal to y. And then second one is not equal to y, then it is a true because x is not equal to y, right? If greater than y, then it is a false, and less than y, it is a true, right? But you can also use this way. Smaller or equals to, then it is still a false, right? It's still a true, right? So because here we learn they are also very important. One more experiment here, okay? And the next one about the logical operators is very, very important. So I'm pretty sure you will use it. You will use it in the future labs, okay? So here is the 5 is equal to 5 and 5 smaller than 6, then print out it is a true, right? The first one, if it's a true. Second one, you see here, this is true, but this is false, but we use or operator, then it is a true, right? Let's check out, sorry. So here, not 5 to 5. 5 to 5 is a true, so that's why here is a false. Check out, okay? So true, true, and false. All right, so you need to know how to determine it is a true or false, all right, with the operators. Okay, so any questions so far? Okay. Next one is about the block if statement. It's very important. So first you need to define a condition, right? So if it is true, then some statements, false other statements, right? So if statement is a common flow control statement, it allows the program to evaluate if a certain condition is satisfied and to perform the design action based on the result of a evaluation structure if statement is if condition 1 is met to A, else if to B, else if to C, and else to E, okay? So it's a common flow, and actually we have already used it, right? Else if means else if the colon is very important part of the structure test where the action begins. So very important. If you have some errors, perhaps you forgot to use this colon, and perhaps you forgot to add this indentation, okay? And because in Python there is no scope like the round brackets or curly brackets, instead Python use an indentation to isolate blocks of codes like here indentation, right? So let's see some example here. So next code fragment illustrates how if statement works. So first one, the program will ask for user for an input. The raw input, actually this input, this is not raw input. Actually, I think it is raw, not raw input. Actually, it's just a raw input. Okay, because in Python 2, we use raw input to get inputs from the users. But in Python 3, especially we are using Python 3.9 now, right? So we can just use the input function, all right? Read any inputs as a string. Please make sure if although you input some string, some numbers, some floats, it will still be considered as a string, all right? The input is stored in a string variable, user input, and if the statement is user input is 1, so if you want to compare them, you need to use a double quotes because the user input would be a string, then you need to compare it with the string. It means like a double quotes and then number 1, all right? Compare with the string 1 if the value is indeed 1, sorry. I think it's yeah, indeed 1, and then we execute it after the colon, and then it will execute print hello, print how do you do, and if some other strings, it will execute something else. So let's see this example. First one, you see here, we want to input here the hint, right? It enter the number 1 or 2, and after that you take it as a string, right? And after that you do the typecasting. Please make sure typecasting here, okay? If it is a 1, then print out hello, how do you do? If it is 2, else if it is 2, then next on the plan, else you didn't enter a valid number, okay? So let's try it. 1, then how do you do, okay? 2, then next on plan. So any other things, for example, 3, or even if you are input like a string, then it will have some errors because here, when you do the typecasting, it cannot work. So that's why here you have some errors. So please make sure to. So you see, it's the same as a flow number, right? So you can only input a number. All right, so it's about the typecasting. So I will show you one more example. You don't need to do that. Just check my screen, okay? So if we don't use this way, we don't use the typecasting. For now, this user input would be a string, right? So for example, let me print out. Let me print out, okay? So user input, you see, then here is the integer, right? So if we print out the type is an integer, but here if we delete that, if we don't do the typecasting, what will happen? So let me put it here. The 1. Actually, you didn't enter a valid number, right? So it's not what we want. So if we want to fix it, we need to add double quotes here, okay? Right, so let's check out 1, then how do you do? It's what we want, because if we don't do the typecasting, then here is a string 1, not an integer 1, and here is a string 2, not an integer 2, okay? So please make sure if you want to do that, you need to check the type of your variable, all right? If you want to compare it with a number, then you need to make sure it is an integer, all right? So it's very important. Okay, so any questions so far? All right, let's cut. And the next one is about a shorter line. It means you inline if statements. So inline if statement is simpler from of an if statement. It's more convenient. You only need to perform a simple conditional task. It means do task 1, task A if condition is true, and else do task B. For example, here is my int is 3, number 1 is 12, and if my int is 0, else 13. So it means if my my int is 0, then number one is 12, else number one is the 13. Okay, so it's more simpler, right? So yeah, enclose, you can also enclose this condition for clarity. Yeah, so here, so actually let me try to tell you. So here is if my int is 0, then number one is 12, else number one is 13, and print out number one. Okay, so these two are exactly the same, but you see the second one would be the inline statement. It would be a simpler, right? So it looks better, but both of them are okay. To be honest, I'm not very I don't like the inline statement. I prefer this way. So I think this structure makes the readers more clear. Okay, so as you see here, it's a 13, right? Here is a 13. So the result or the functionality is the same, but the second one is shorter. But I think the first one would be the structure is clear. All right. So it depends on you. Both of them are okay. It's about the inline if statements. All right. So any questions? All right. So let's see the next example. It's about the pass of 4. You don't need to do that. Okay. So pass of fail. So first one, take the following inputs from the user. Grade from less than 1, grade from less than 2, from less than 3, and compute the average of the 3 grades, and then decide whether the student will pass or fail. Then you see here, after you input the number, then do the type casting, right? So do the integer, and then after that compute the average, and if it is greater than 5 or not, and passed or failed. Okay, so you can try it. For instance, 5, 4, 5, then the average course grade would be 4.666. Then it is not greater than 5, so it's failed, right? Only if 5, 5, 5, then it is passed. Okay, so please run it on your own computer and test with some numbers, and then you will know how to write the if statements. All right. So actually, yeah. So this is the last example, and if you want to read more, you can read these documents. And today we have one exercise. It's not very easy, but I can give you some hints here. So below is multiple alternative if statements want to display a message indicating the success of students for giving assignment on a grade scale of 5. So 1 failed, bad, satisfactory, good, excellent. However, the code is not functioning as expected. So please correct the mistakes and make this code work. Okay, so sorry, I think. Oh, I think it's I'm sorry, I think it's correct for now. Yeah, I think it's correct. It's weird. So I remember, let me try. Fail. Yeah. Oh, why it's correct? Let me check it, copy. Okay. I think there's something wrong. It's a correct code now, because yeah, in the previous version, it is there's some mistake. Like for example, here is you didn't do the type casting. Okay, so for example, you didn't do the type casting, then when you compare it with the numbers, it will not work. And then in some cases, you forget to use the double quotes, then when you print the bed, it will consider it as a variable, not a string. Then it has some error, or you didn't use the else if you use if. I think this is a previous version of the code, but perhaps I corrected it. I corrected all the mistakes, and yeah, so that's why here it works. So all right, so it doesn't matter. Please just run the exercise and show some tests. All right, so yeah. Okay, so that's all I want to share today. So please run all the cells and finish this exercise. Actually, this exercise is a correct. It's correct. So please just run some tests. All right. So yeah, that's all I want to share today. Please make sure to submit it by the end of Wednesday. All right. Have a nice day. If you have questions, you can stay here. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, yes. I'm sorry. I think it's not a correct, but for now it is a correct code. So just run this exercise and show me the tests. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So input. Okay, I will end here. Thank you, guys.